And welcome back to Stories from the River. I'm your host, Charlie Malouf. I'm here with Tim Clouse, our Vice President of Operations, and James Ouellette, our Associate Director of Operational Excellence. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thanks, Charlie.
Return guests, both of you, right?
Absolutely.
Correct.
Well, we're glad to have you back here at Stories from the River.
Welcome to Stories from the River, a show in which we go behind the scenes at Broad River Retail.
We've got a first time ever. This is the reason that, we just completed end of year. We hit some major milestones. What end of year usually means you're trying to get all your numbers correct and everything counted. Speaking of counted, what would be something that happens at the end of the year, Tim?
Yeah, usually the first Sunday of the new year, all 3 distribution centers count. So every single location gets counted, every piece gets counted. Obviously, Sundays we're closed, so there's no movement of product. But yeah, we've got teams that are sent out and counting all day long.
And that's happened every year for the last several years at Broad River Retail.
That's correct.
But for this year.
It's 2024.
So at the end of this year, Tim, the reason I wanted to have you guys on, and this topic is about inventory profitability, and we're going to unpack that phrase that you've kind of shared with me. But we've got 3 distribution centers, and 2 of the 3, or 2 largest ones, did not have to complete a full physical inventory. And I don't think it's because we don't love inventory accuracy. I think we need inventory accuracy. So what gives? James, what's up with that?
Well, we just really wanted to make sure that we took care of our product and took very seriously how we organize ourselves when we count this. Prior to this, it was, we had schedules to hit and to make sure that we checked every box, but not in a manner that was really transparent to our teammates and transparent with finance. And we really wanted to create something that was really accessible and shareable with every department at any given day. So you could see exactly where we were in our process each month and then cumulatively through the year.
Well, I love the transparency and I love the partnership with the multiple departments, especially finance. You want them to be in the auditors, but I'm going to come back to that for a second. Tim, how did you get away? Who made the call that and who's okay with it? How do we come about we're not going to count 2 of we're not going to do a full physical count? Was that something you planned for? Was that something you just arrived at? Was that a stated goal with new decoy and things that you laid out with the new Elevate year? So at the beginning of the year, tell us how that came to be.
Yeah, obviously having resources on a Sunday when we're normally at home with our families has always been something that we said, well, why? Why do we have to do that? And so it actually started with a conversation with Bill Woodman, and him and I were talking. He's like, hey, how do we get ourselves to a point where we don't have to do this anymore? And so we started brainstorming that, and really caught some momentum towards the end of 2022 with the partnership with Therese Laval in the finance team, and then Sri Rivera, who's our foundational process guru. The 2 of them got together and started working on a program. What would that look like where we can show daily, weekly, monthly evidence that our inventory profitability or inventory integrity is premier. And so we had to build a program around that, and that caused us to obviously have a look in the mirror, reevaluate how we're doing things today. Are we doing things in a way that are going to allow our third party auditing company come in and say, yep, we can trust that your inventory is exactly what you say it is. And that caused us many different roads. That's one of the reasons why James is here is we needed tools. We needed ways that we can measure ourselves. And we've kind of broken it down into, we've got daily cadences that have to happen. There's checkpoints to those. So we have 2 checkpoints per task. So as the cycle count is completed, the DC leader has to then sign off that the count is good. And then somebody from Ops Excellence team also has to confirm that the count was good for that day.
So you've got all these processes.
That's right.
Let's go to the punchline for a second.
Sure.
What were the results of Fort Mill, South Carolina, and 4 Oaks, North Carolina distribution centers? How accurate are they?
Yeah, they're running in the 99.90 range.
99.90. Okay, that's correct. That's pretty fan. And you believe that even without doing a full physical, where sometimes you might find a whole bunch of things that got left, or you find that things that you thought were there were not there, that you've maintained that accuracy all year?
Throughout the whole year, right?
So you're saying that when we look at our balance sheet and you use this phrase inventory integrity, that what we say it is with high percentage of probability is what it is.
That is correct, and that's one of our foundational things inside the ops, which we talk about a lot, right? Is our number one thing is inventory integrity. Our number two thing is cost avoidance, and our number three thing is process compliance. And we take inventory integrity is number one for a reason.
And why is that? Why would inventory integrity? Why does so much hinge on inventory integrity?
Yeah, well, we take ownership of the investments that we make in those pieces coming in. Every single piece we expect to be sold at retail. And so obviously we have instances where that can or cannot happen, and we do our best to make sure it does. But if we're not all striving for each piece to be retail value, then we have, capital losses inside of the business, which it is a reflection of maybe how we're handling the inventory and the way our vendors are doing it. So it's extremely, extremely important to us that those pieces are sold retail value. Also, customer experience. So if we say we have that recliner at the point of sale and it turns out we don't have that recliner, broken promises, those are situations we don't want to find ourselves
Which
in.
Also ultimately drive your cost up, because if you have to go back and pick something, drive it around on a truck, put it back because it wasn't delivered, or you go to pick something that's not there. That's right. A lot of wasted footsteps that come along that way. But as you're talking, I'm getting this metaphor of like a bank, right? That because I think of, maybe it was Bill Woodman who said at one point, think of inventory like cash.
Right.
And, and so protect it as such. We're the bank. And so if it's coming in here, it's going out in mint condition. You're like the Fort Knox of inventory.
100%.
And how do you drill that down to the front lines to think of it as inventory integrity, cost avoidance, and process compliance? How do you get folks to believe in the value of inventory that's got to maintain its value all the way to the customer's home? Yeah,
it's a great question. It's the question that we asked ourselves.
Okay.
If everybody's not familiar, we do a competition every year called DC of the Year, which had inventory integrity obviously as a KPI. It's one of our number one KPIs. But as we ran into season 2, which we always do, we reevaluate what worked, what didn't work, what do we need to focus on for season 2. And I think maybe people have heard, we have an epic team, which is basically high level operations people that take some time out of the day to just think about what's next. What do we need to work on next? What do we need to look for next?
I love that reflective exercise of the Epic team. I still haven't gotten the invite to the Epic meetings. I'm still waiting on that invite.
Yeah. We'll talk to James about that later. Yeah. So, James kind of helps lead it, but one of the things we talked about was inventory integrity. How could we do better in 2023 which again was really good in 21. I mean, our inventory integrity has always been there, but one thing we always strive for is how do we get better? And so one of the things that came up in that meeting was, well, do our memory makers understand what that means? Do they understand what inventory integrity? We think we understand what it means. But we came up with a rebrand, which was inventory profitability, which ultimately was it was understood in a different level from our memory makers on the floor than just inventory integrity, because we explained what it meant. When you purchase something, you want to make sure that the thing lasts as long as it can. You want to get the good use out of it, and so we kind of put some real world scenarios together to say, hey, here's what inventory profitability means to us. Here's how you can impact inventory profitability this year, and that really stuck.
And this, who came up with this rebrand?
It was a team effort.
And that collaborative effort, and that came up at the beginning of 2023 as you guys are.
It was towards the end of 22 as we were thinking about Decoy season 2.
The goals for Decoy.
That's
DC of the year.
DC of the year.
Okay. Who won DC of the year, by the way?
The Fort Mill Otters won this year. Yeah,
okay.
They won.
Close.
They won by 5 points.
5 points.
The Falcons were down, I don't know, by maybe 15 or 16 at week 48, 49, and they came all the way back and almost clinched a back-to-back, but didn't quite make it happen.
I love a good competition. Okay, so now Spartan Ridge did do a physical count.
They did, yeah.
And I guess they didn't qualify for the exemption.
That's right.
That the other two did. And the exemption comes through the process of cycle counting and the audit process that you put in that said, hey, what we say is there, it's there, go test it, it's there, it's right.
That's right.
But Spartan Ridge, I guess they came close, but they didn't quite get to those numbers.
Yeah, honestly, it was an executive decision. Spartanburg's only been open for 2 years.
Okay.
We had a new inventory manager that had started, and we just felt that, number one, he had never been through a physical. It is a good muscle to have in your toolbox. And so we said, hey, why don't we make a decision today, knowing that the Otters and the Falcons were going to be exempt. Let's put all our resources and time into Spartanburg, and the gentleman's name's Jacob. Let's put all of our effort into him, make sure he builds up that muscle, and then obviously the results proved.
What were the results?
Yeah, so from a piece count perspective, it was 99.87, which we're very happy about. And then absolute was 99.76. So really good results.
Those are strong numbers. Yeah. You've got to be very proud of the, how do you guys celebrate as a team when you see these numbers? Like, and everyone, was it better than you guys were expecting?
No, I mean, we always expect perfection, which we obviously can't get to. But yeah, no, I think the numbers are great. We did do something small, which I think at the end of the day was kind of big. Every time one of our FEOs came back from cycle counting.
FEO.
Yeah, so a furniture equipment operator.
Okay.
So every time they came back from their aisle after counting, and if it came back perfect, we played We Are the Champions over the speakers. Nice. Yeah, so we got to do that a few times.
Talk to me about the team. So Cherie was leading the team, and talk to me about who's this team on the counting team?
Yeah, so Cherie and Therese really partnered well and came up with the documented program. Mm-hmm. We've got Jim in Fort Mill, who's the inventory leader for the Otters. We got Missy in Four Oaks for the Falcons. Then we have Jacob in Spartanburg. Obviously, with the help of Stacy in Fort Mill, Ryan in Spartanburg, and Chris in Four Oaks, who are the DC leaders. All of them working on it, but ultimately, the tools that were created were done by this guy over here. And love to have James talk a little bit about how that process evolved and all the things that went into that.
Yeah. So James, and I hope like during this, for those of you watching on YouTube, we're going to share some of the screenshots of the tools that we have here. Just a little Broad River give back. We're not going to show the analytics behind it, but we'll share some of the tools. So the mastermind, the wizard behind the spreadsheet, Mr. Excel himself, James, talk to us about the tools that had to be created that ultimately led to not having to do a full physical inventory and getting to this 99.90%.
Yeah, well, it really started out with Therese and Cherie approaching me and just saying, hey, we'd like to put a program together, and we want to make sure that it's, as I stated before, transparent, but certainly from Therese's standpoint as well, we want to make sure that it was protected. So a lot of protections where there's no fat fingering, there's no a rookie in there messing around with something, thinking that they're helping, but it might be knocking the integrity of the program. So every step of the way, we really walked through, put yourself in the cyclist's shoes. Let's start there. What's it look like to come in and do your count and then fill out the spreadsheet or just one-liners that really indicate what day and what you counted and how it went. And as Tim mentioned, also showing who checked behind them. And then, every single step of the way, quick, simple, easy ways to document what just occurred. And that way we can share it with whomever needs to see it. And we know that it's locked in tight where the integrity of the program is without question.
Who's entering is it manually entered into the spreadsheet, or is it automated pull from some of the?
So it's manually entered from the cyclists, but there's also, there's information in stores that can back up what they've ran and what they've counted, which is where management can also check behind them.
So you validate it with what's in the system with what they input.
Yeah,
and so how many tools exist? Was that so? This spreadsheet was one of them.
There's a master cycle count sheet which all 3 DCs enter in on in the same place, so no one has to worry about this is my section. You just fill it out as you go. It will sort it out and it will account for what we've valued as the expectation for the month. So at a minimum, every single location's counted, but in in a vast majority, they're counted twice. And it's indicated in a very clean, clear manner of, here's how many times you are expected to count this area, and then here's how many you have so far. So it's not just, at the end, lag measure, let's see how we did. It's every single moment you can log in and see exactly where each DC, how they're trending. You can take a look ahead and see, hey, are you guys on pace for the end of the month, or are you behind? Do you need help?
And who's logging, like the supervisor, the manager, or the individual cyclist is logging in to view this?
All. So the cyclist is entering it, but they can also see, they're allowed to see all those pieces so they can get a feel for, okay, I'm running this race for the month. How much further do I have to go? How am I pacing? And then the managers can keep an eye on that as well. And then also check behind to make sure that we've got just the transparency and the quality that we need.
And this was introduced in 2023?
It was, yes. Actually, we began the program in November of 2022. And then we had because we really wanted a couple months run up just to see how this thing was flowing, so that when we hit 23, we felt great about it. And that's where it took off from.
And who built did you build the program?
Yes, I built the file and working with Cherie and Therese for the process, and then the expectations from finance, and just continually talking and putting it out there for questions and for scrutiny. And okay, no problem. What else can we do? What's the next level? And boy, between Therese and Cherie, they had plenty to keep coming back with, But you know what? It made it such a great program, and we really just kept water testing it, and we felt like we had a great product.
What does water testing it mean?
If you submerge something that you say is airtight and won't underwater, that you know that it's going to stay. So gotcha. take a watch that's water resistant or waterproof. Excuse me. You know that you can wear it scuba diving deep to the bottom of the ocean, and so you know it's going to work.
You beat this thing up to make sure that it could work the way you wanted to.
Yes.
Now, are the cyclists entering the information as they go? And if so, how much is it slowing them down, or is it no deterrence of their speed?
It's once they're complete with their cycle count. Once they're complete for that cycle count.
Yeah. But does it slow down before they get to the next location?
The cycle count themselves, it's all scanning. So they go out with the scan gun and they're scanning location, barcode, location, barcode. And when they come back, all their scanning is now inside of Storus. And then from there, they export that information into the Excel file. Yep.
And it's just one line for each location that they're counting.
So it's pretty simple. Mm-hmm. We'll have to show the screenshot.
Yeah, we'll get a screenshot.
Show how it looks on the screen so I can visualize it. Yeah. I love this idea of taking a complex problem, building an ad hoc solution with tribal knowledge, beating it up, reflecting from cross-departmental collaboration, internal departmental collaboration towards the vision of greater inventory integrity, towards this deal that like now we can celebrate. We don't have to go count. It's been hours. I've done full physical inventories. They're not fun to do. But I tell you what is fun is to know with confidence that the inventory in your distribution center is what it is, where it is, what you say it is. And that feels really, really good to come up with a process like this.
Feels great.
So I've got just some other notes here. Like there's a daily, you finalize this winning formula. So talk to me about documenting our processes, setting expectations, and this winning formula. Tim, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, sure. So the program, obviously with the help of Therese in finance, was to ensure that, hey, any program or any tasks that we're doing are going to pass the litmus test for an external auditor. So they provided a lot of input for us. Obviously with Cherie's background, I think we had a pretty good head start. But part of that was, okay, toll gates. We need to create toll gates. We have to have daily toll gates, and that's kind of where
what is a toll gate?
So if you think about it, it's actually a term from project management, but it makes you stop, right, and go back. Did we pay the toll, or did we give everything? Did we do things the way they were supposed to be done? Yes or no? Yes, you can move forward, or no, I need to go back. And so we wanted to have those in place for the program as well. And so those are instilled in the daily side when it comes to, hey, does the DC leaders got to check it? Did the cycle count do everything they're supposed to do? Yes, I signed off on it. And then we also have a third level per se with our ops excellence team, which is a total third party, right? So that's Used to be Colin or Cherie. Now it's Sarah and Colin, Sarah and Cherie are making sure that the DC did what they're supposed to do. Mm-hmm. So to us, those are the toll gates. And then the weekly toll gates actually come from Theresa's team. They come into our DC, do a couple sample counts, and make sure that what we're saying via the reports and all those things are lining up with what's physically going on in the DC. So that one's been a huge benefit to us.
That's not always fun too. Like have someone else come inspect your work. Like, I don't know if I want that, but that's like being willing to say, yeah, come inspect our work. Tell if it's not right,
And to me, that's we're completely transparent. Come in anytime. The process that we've established are being followed. But at the end of the day, it's actually been a huge win for us because they're not there all the time. And so they'll bring a different perspective of, hey, what about this and what about that? And that's where I give Therese and Bill a ton of credit, is their collaboration and their partnership with us is why we were as good as we were. Without their inputs, I think we obviously could have got it over the line, but I don't think it'd be as premier as it is today without their inputs. And then the last one is monthly. So we have a monthly touch base that's macro level for me. So Cherie and I will get on a call and she'll walk me through all the results at each of the 3 DCs. Mm-hmm. It gives me a chance to ask questions. And particularly for third-party auditors, it's the executive flow. Hey, how high up are you guys going to make sure that you guys are following processes? And so we do that every month. And then we rinse and repeat. We do those 3 things for the next month.
Okay. Now, that's great. Now, but there's some specific nuances, right? Mm-hmm. There's this creation of a disposition tool. So sometimes we have to bill product, right? Was it successfully delivered into the customer's home? Okay, bill it, complete it. It's out of our system. It's in the customer's home. But sometimes we get product that comes back and we have to have a way to account for that. So creation of a disposition tool at the time of billing. Mm-hmm. James, talk to us about that.
Sure. So we really wanted to take the emotion out of deciding whether a piece goes back to the shop or not.
Right.
You get three DCs, so you're going to have at least 3 different people making this decision every day. So how do we take the emotion out of this? Well, let's just use some logic. We know that we have return code, and we know that we have a disposition code, which means as it comes in, they're taking a look at the product, deciding what type of fix, adjustment, if any, needs to be applied. And then they enter those into at this point, we've partnered with BI, and they were great partners with us and able to help us work on the algorithm to say, okay, well, you've got this return code and you've got that a disposition code. Let's also take into account, okay, how much would that cost us in labor to fix that product for that disposition code? And does it math out? Does it work out that we want to bring it back to the shop or make some other decisions with it? But it doesn't just say, oh, well, you make the call. It gives you the answer. Bring to shop, trash, or whatever we need to do with it.
Can you ever override what it tells you to do? Like if you're like, gosh, it's telling me to put this back in the rack, but I'm looking at it and it's really beat up.
No, follow it.
Why is that? Why? No, you want no exceptions, no human intervention. So the system is perfect, never gets it wrong?
Well, we've put some, and I know we weren't going to talk about it, but we've put some levers in there to turn it up or down. So, but the decision that it makes is clearly based on what we believe should be done with the part, based on our years of experience with, hey, if it's that type of scratch, it's going to take this long. It's going to cost us, take this much time, cost these resources. So, we've been capturing that data for, years. And so we have all that in a database.
Yeah, and the reason codes, if they're entered correctly, you know that what needs to happen with it.
That's right.
Do you ever foresee a future where AI comes and informs like predictive analytics or informs the decision, or it's just based on like how would you use AI? I've just thought of that. It's not something I thought of before.
What I would say, and then one of the notes I wrote down is the analytics we're using to determine whether it should or shouldn't has a little bit of AI built into it, because it's doing a ton of calculations on hourly labor, resource cost, time it takes. So it's an algorithm. It's a proprietary algorithm that we've come up with to determine where it goes. very, very similar to how an AI makes a decision.
Okay, I got it. So James is our AI
James is
bot?
our AI guy. Yeah.
Well, I definitely have to give a shout out to BI for assistance for this on this one as well. But
I just remember seeing the database and it was big.
Yeah,
There's a lot of stuff going on in there.
So what would you advise another company in our space who's wrestling with, well, I don't even know, I don't have a James, I don't have a BI department. Well, I don't believe our inventory is close enough. We'll just count it if it's not. What would you tell them?
Yeah, I mean, I think the daily discipline of doing a sample count or doing cycle counts is a huge point that has to be a part of any distribution center. Too many times we've heard of stories where, yeah, I don't count anything until that once a year thing. Oh man, I mean, the amount of pain that they're about to go through doing that count, it's better to be done in small bites.
Yeah.
Small bites every day. Count this. Have good daily cadences to it. It was one of the reasons why we actually had the creation of the disposition tool. The cycle counts are really checking on inbound and outbound processes. So the inbound process is, do we do that right or wrong? And the outbound process, do we do that right or wrong? That's really what the cycle count is catching. But we didn't have anything to catch the pieces coming back. And so that's where the disposition tool idea even came from was, hey, we need to have the same level of inventory profitability on not only the pieces that the inbound team and the outbound team touch, but also our billing teams when they're touching those pieces. How do we ensure that that we're getting the same result that we need? And that's how the disposition tool actually became.
And we're our products aren't like really small pieces; they're large pieces. We don't have RFID tags, or they're not like electronically monitored but wherever the inventory is in the distribution center, whether it's in the prep lane, the rack aisles, the shop, what have you, or on the home delivery truck, we know where it's at.
We know exactly where it is. That's right.
Which is comforting, right? So the inventory is being tracked at all times. The system can tell you where it is, where it needs to be, and so. James, what would you tell someone who's like looking at trying to be convinced to invest the time or resources, or even how to go about it?
I think that in the end, it doesn't have to be complicated. You just have to make that decision to apply a process. And it doesn't always have to be perfect when you start it. You need to just start somewhere, figure out a process that works for you, that you're able to start to track what's coming in and going out. It could be a simple spreadsheet. It comes with most computers. You don't need AI. You just need to have the will and the fortitude to say, no, we're going to stick to this. We're going to log everything that comes in. We can do this. And as we go, we'll continue to refine it and make it easier and better and smoother and smarter. But in the beginning, it's just more about making the decision as a team to do it and to live by it. And if you just start there, I think that over the years, it will begin to develop into a program that works for you.
And what if I were to say, well, inventory just sits there. How can it get out of the location? How can it not be there? I mean, how would you respond to that, Tim?
Yeah, I think you have to look at touches. I mean, the amount of times a piece gets touched is probably more than 2. And so at any of those points in time, you can have a mispick. And so they've picked a piece that they weren't supposed to pick, and then it goes somewhere, and maybe it gets out the door, maybe it doesn't, but then somebody's got to go put it back. So I think, obviously being in distribution for as long as we have, James has seen a lot of it, probably with smaller pieces.
Yes.
So his life's been a lot more frustrating than mine. But your inventory is moving more than you think it is.
And once it gets inaccurate, that's where all your operational costs go up, because that's all the double work, the double steps, the research.
Yep.
The customer frustration, the reorders, the replacements, et cetera. So the beautiful thing is, by keeping your inventory super accurate and investing in all that proactive work, we've actually seen our OpEx reduce.
That's correct. And that's where the cost avoidance comes in.
That's right.
So our inventory integrity is really high, and we've been able to avoid some of those costs that we previously had.
And they flow throughout the entire back-end operation. All the cost of like replacements and even margins, all of that gets improved by making sure that the inventory is where it needs to be. So it's highly important to invest in this. As you're talking about like the daily discipline, and you've got these dailies and these weeklies and these monthlies, it reminds me of, you can't start a crash diet and let's say you want to lose X number of pounds. Let's say you want to lose 30 pounds. Well, you can't wait until like the end of the year and say, well, I have probably not do it safely.
Right.
You need to kind of monitor that and do it all throughout the year to keep and maintain it. And that's the better way to do it. Inch by inch, step by step, day by day, brick by brick. So I applaud you guys on tremendous results this year. So as we close out, final words, James, that you want to say, anything that we haven't said?
I think that a key factor, just to close out, would be to have someone who's always monitoring the program. So take Shuri, who's always looking out after the program, always making sure that those processes that we built at inception are always followed through with or caught and coached and explained why they're important to us. I think if you don't have that piece, we can build the best rocket ship in the world, but if you don't have a captain on board making sure that the ship's going to make it to the destination, it will go off course. So I think it's really important to have that.
That's a great reminder on repetition and reminder, and having a chief reminding officer and a process overseer, process captain, because it can be great to draw up all the plays you want.
Yep.
But if you're not coaching how to get it done constantly, because you do have to practice it, and you have new rookies who come into the system, what have you, and
That's right.
or people who might forget or need to understand the why behind it. So that's a great reminder. Tim, as we wrap up here, again, applaud you on the success. 2 out of 3 major distribution centers avoided full physical for this year. Are we going to go all 3 for 3?
That's the goal, 2025, all 3. Yeah, I mean, I think closing marks for me would be, I think it answers your previous question. If I didn't answer it well enough, was people. At the end of the day, we were very successful, and we will continue to be successful because of the Shuris, because of the Thereses, because of the Jims, the Missies, and the Jacobs. I mean, though they eat, sleep, wake up wanting to ensure that our inventory is the best that it can be. And so by having those people on our team, just makes you feel real good when you lay your head down at night. And then characteristics of them is their daily disciplines, they trust and verify. Obviously, we have documented processes, and the partnerships and the collaboration really led to a very successful 2023.
It's a team effort. So I'll thank you guys, everyone who contributed to our inventory accuracy and our inventory profitability at the river. It's a great story to be told. So it's one that I had to bring Tim and James out here to come help us tell this story as we kick off season 3. And so if you want to know about inventory accuracy, or just call these 2 gentlemen right here, they'll tell you all about it. And as they rephrased it, inventory profitability. Hey, thanks for checking us out here at Stories from the River. We try to bring you fresh new content that's pertinent and relevant to help that we're doing successfully, or that we're finding wins. Maybe you can find a win here. Thanks for checking us out. Hey, mash that like button or subscribe button. We'll bring you fresh new content. Hey, leave us a comment. Let us know how we can get better. Thank you guys so much. Tim, James, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Charlie.
Thanks for listening to Stories from the River. To check out more episodes, visit storiesfromtheriver.com. Join us again next week, and remember to like, rate, and subscribe to the podcast.